Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer, and that means that I am board-certified, tried, tested, true. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and I'm a trial lawyer. It's what I do. But before we get into what we're going to... We have breaking news here, and I guess it's kind of breaking news since yesterday on the YSL RICO case. But before we get to that, this episode, like all of our episodes, is brought to you by eForms.com. That's eForms.com. eForms.com. So let's say you have an ex-girlfriend and she just won't leave you alone, and she's living in your basement, and you got to get her out of there because she's just such a pain in the ass. She's tweaking out on meth and she doesn't have a lease. Well, you go get an eviction form from eForms.com. You don't hire me. You do what you got to do. It doesn't matter what state you're in. You go to eForms.com and they have you covered. Whether it's a power of attorney, eviction form, whatever you need, they'll get rid of that ex-girlfriend like that. Okay, so now we are reacting to Sergio Kitchens. Sergio Kitchens, as you know, was a high-ranking YSL member, and he pled guilty yesterday in open court, and then he was released from jail. So let's talk about what a plea is first. A plea is when you all of a sudden say, hey, look, I'm guilty. There's two parts to a plea. There's a waiver of your rights because you have a right to a trial, and there's a whole bunch of rights. You have a right to testify, cross-examine witnesses, blah, blah, blah. So you have to waive all those rights first. Then there's what's called a factual basis, and that's what we're going to show you here. Factual basis, that's where you have to admit that you committed a crime. You cannot enter a plea and not admit that you did something wrong. So let's see what the judge has to say, and the prosecutor in this case.
Please state after each statement whether or not you agree or acknowledge that statements are true, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the factual basis. So basically you got to admit to what you're doing or what you did. That makes you guilty.
I became affiliated with YSL around 2016. Is that true as it pertains to you, Mr. Kitchens?
Yes, ma'am.
I became affiliated. So he all of a sudden acknowledges YSL as a gang.
YSL is a music label and a gang, and you have personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang.
Yes, ma'am.
So he admitted not only that YSL is a music label, but it's also a gang, and that he and others committed crimes in furtherance of YSL.
You were present when law enforcement officers stopped a vehicle in which you were present along with Jeffrey Williams, wherein hydrocodone, methamphetamines, and a firearm were recovered. These items did not belong to you.
Yes, ma'am.
So you were with Young Thug when you had some drugs and guns in the car. Oh, and by the way, none of that shit was yours, right? Okay. Oh, who says it? Oh, I guess it must have been the other guy. Fucking A.
I recognize, accept, and deeply regret that my talent and music indirectly furthered YSL the gang to the detriment of my community. YSL as a gang must end. Is that your statement or acknowledgement?
Yes.
YSL as the gang must end. I deeply regret. First of all, that you don't need that for a plea. She wanted that for some reason. That's the prosecutor that's standing up talking right now. There's been a lot of talk in the Twitter sphere and the atmosphere and the cybersphere about whether or not Gunna is snitching. Well, they got a trial coming up, and now he just admitted in open court all these different things. Now, Gunna's lawyer, if you look on here, it says Gunna did not snitch to get out of jail. He has said nothing and is not cooperating. He just admitted in open court. His plea statement cannot be used in court against any other defendant. Not true. So please stop spreading lies. Let's just break this down because people want to know if he's a snitch or not. I can honestly tell you that I don't know if he's snitching or not. His lawyer says he's not cooperating, but that's what he's going to say. You wouldn't have any document to show that he's cooperating. But can his statement be used against somebody else in their trial? Well, let's analyze that. Unless there's a specific agreement to not have that be used in another person's trial, it can be. Why can't it be? Because it's an admission against penal interest. That is not hearsay. Otherwise, Otherwise, it would be a hearsay statement. But when you make a statement under oath and you inculpate yourself, that means you point the finger at yourself that you did something wrong. That's a statement against interest. That is not hearsay, and that absolutely can be used in a trial against Young Thug. Now, these are extremely serious charges. Kitchens was released from jail on Wednesday, that's yesterday, and his lawyer said he's been held without bail in advance of trial, which is supposed to start in January. This guilty plea was an important development in one of the two sprawling Atlanta criminal cases targeting what prosecutors say are a pair of feuding gangs that have committed dozens of shootings and other violent crimes since 2015. Further says that Kitchens entered an Alford plea, which allows defendants to maintain their innocence while pleading guilty. So here's the plea agreement. I agreed to perform 500 hours of community service, a substantial portion of which will require that I speak to young men and women about the hazards and the immorality of gangs and gang violence and the decay that it causes on our community. I agree that the community service locations shall be determined by the Iowas, blah, blah, blah. I will possess no guns during the term of this sentence or any time, and he got 5 years commuted down to 1. For time served. So he's out and doesn't have to do any more time. Then you have the acknowledgments that we just saw. And if he violates the plea agreement, the district attorney can and will use the statement during any judicial proceedings. Any violation of this plea agreement shall result in full revocation of his suspended sentence. So he's got, I think, 5 years hanging over his head. So people are talking about whether he's a snitch or not. Whether he's a snitch or not, we won't know until Thug's trial. Actually, we might know just a little bit before that, because my guess is that if he did snitch, the state would have to disclose that and disclose the witness's statement shortly before trial. But it isn't going to be much before trial, because he would have a target on his back, no question in my mind, if he decides to snitch. But here's the other thing. Whether Gunna's a snitch or not, fuck that. Who cares? Because there's 20 other people or 27 other people who are charged in this indictment, right? And so I guarantee you they've got snitches that are going to be coming out of the woodwork. Whether Gunna is snitching or not is sort of immaterial, because I guarantee you they have more than one snitch. Their case will not just be based upon Gunna's word and Gunna's word alone. They're going to have corroboration through cell phone, through text messages, through evidence seized in searches, and snitch testimony. Now, his trial is supposed to start on January 5th. So the timing of the new charges and the timing of the plea for Gunna is kind of, you can kind of read into it where they're going with this. So if you remember, NBA Youngboy came up with a plan to get out of jail and an elaborate security plan and curfew and all that kind of stuff. In June, Young Thug did the same thing, but the judge denied his bond and an elaborate house arrest plan. Several factors were taken into consideration, including a threat introduced to the court attributed to Williams from 2015 that states, anybody goes into courtroom and tells the God's honest truth, they'll be fucking killed. That's probably a pretty good reason to keep him in custody, don't you think? When you have a situation, this is high profile as it gets in this kind of gang world, and it is, if you look at getting out with a slap on the wrist, essentially, I don't know how he's not snitching. Now, I don't want to start spreading rumors and have all my fans say Gunna's a snitch, because I don't know that he's a snitch. Sort of smells like snitch, though. But we'll find out within the next few weeks whether he's snitching or not. His lawyer was right in one aspect. He generally can't admit a statement of a co-defendant against another without the co-defendant being present. And we'll have to see whether the Fulton County goes with the exception that I talked about. If they don't, if it's just Thug and Gunna in the car, who's going to testify about what? And now there's an admission on the record that it wasn't Gunna's. So the implication is that it's Young Thug's. So we'll have to see what's going to happen here. We'll follow this in depth, but it's really interesting that he took this plea basically on the eve of trial. I think that he was feeling the heat, and they offered him a pretty good deal. But how this doesn't involve snitching, generally speaking, they don't let people out to snitch. But they might have had a weaker case against Gunna, and that could also be a very valid reason why they agreed to do the plea the way they did. So we'll follow this. Make sure you go to Bonfire. Don't forget Bonfire. Christmas is right around the corner. Get some merch. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away.
23-hour lockdown, police is at my god.